I am so delighted to have my friend and former business colleague, Kate Fandry, with me today. Many of you will know Kate from her wonderful work over the years. And today we're going to talk about something that's affecting many of us in both challenging and good ways. So we're going to talk about late diagnosis ADHD, and we're going to talk about Kate's new fabulous career, which is one of her dreams come true. I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. Welcome back to Do Yourself a Favour. I am delighted to have my friend and I suppose former colleague, Kate Fandry, here with me today. And we're going to have a wonderful conversation. And we decided that we might talk about late diagnosis. Is it late diagnosis or late onset ADHD?
Late diagnosis.
Late diagnosis.
Definitely.
ADHD.
Definitely been there from the get-go.
I was going to say, it's not the onset, is it?
No, it's not the onset.
Yeah, right. So you and I met about, we always try and guess, 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It was, we were at an event, weren't we? We were networking and we met. And then I think it was you that said, right, let's catch up again. And that was a great decision because we have had a very nice time since then and all through our own lives, ups and downs and catching up when we can. Yeah. And a lot has happened since then for you, including, and for me, this late diagnosis.
Indeed, yes.
Right, where shall we start?
Oh, I was just going to say I'm realising more and more that when I meet people, and at that stage of my career I was meeting a lot of people because I was doing business development for 2 different things. So I was networking like a beast.
You really were.
I really was. But what I'm realising is that the people that I have a real connection with and just have that feeling of like, oh no, you seem really like a good fun, like I'd like to see you again.
Yes.
Most of them have turned out to also be neurodiverse in some way. So I just find that really interesting.
Isn't it just
are drawn to one another.
So you said it wasn't something that onset late, it was just diagnosed late. What did you notice prior to diagnosis in hindsight? Like when you look back, you go, oh.
Well, I mean, the major thing that like led to my diagnosis was I had an absolutely epic burnout, ADHD burnout. So that I had really just ignored, was coming on for literally years.
Okay.
But apart from that, in terms of, you know, when I was functioning better, I guess just a lot of the things that I thought were either, I suppose, personality or my own sort of things turn out to not really be.
Yeah.
For example, you know, my parents, they ever since I can remember, they would always say, we used to wish that you came with an off button with your talking because you just talked incessantly.
Oh, wow.
Like non-stop. And if not an off button, maybe just like a mute.
Oh.
Yeah. But then they always said that then it was kind of nice. I've got one sister.
Yes.
And she actually also has a late diagnosis. Obviously, it's very much a genetic thing, so that's not uncommon. But she didn't have the incessant talking side of things. But also when you go through puberty, you tend to sort of, you know, talk less, maybe share less with your parents.
Yes.
So they were thankful then that I was such a talker because they said we always still felt like we knew what was going on in your life because you just talked and talked. So that's definitely one thing.
Yeah.
I think as well, just I've got a mixed diagnosis. So, you know, inattentive and hyperactive.
Yes.
The hyperactivity part of things, I think in girls often does present differently. A lot of the hyperactivity goes on up here, but I certainly have a component that is physical as well. But because I was such a you know, like I wanted to be a good girl, particularly at school or any sort of, you know, situation, I knew that I couldn't just like, I wanted to like get up and move around, but that wasn't necessarily okay. So I would just come up with strategies like I always, and still now, like I, just wiggle my toes a lot, like within my shoes. It's not going to bother anyone. I often, and this is another thing that's still now, pretend that I need to use the bathroom. Like if I'm stuck in a meeting or a conference or something,
yes,
it's like, oh, I need to, but I don't. I just need to like get up and move around.
Yeah.
As a child, I think that whole not being able to sit still, one story that I always remember, and I remember telling the psychologist and then the psychiatrist sort of on my diagnosis journey, was that my favourite uncle and aunt, they knew this artist. They lived in the Perth Hills, as do you, and you know that there's some very artistic people.
There is.
Up there, and they decided for my parents for Christmas that they would get this artist to do like a pencil drawing of my sister and I.
Oh, wow.
We would have been primary school age. I don't know, maybe I was like 7 or 8 and my sister's 2 years older. And so I tried to sit for this artist because it was, not just from a photo. They were, it was a serious thing. I couldn't do it. We tried 2 or 3 times and I remember being in tears and being upset that I couldn't do what, and everyone was so nice.
Yes.
And my aunt and uncle were like, don't worry, it's fine. And my parents have still got this like one drawing of one child.
Oh, wow. So they did go ahead.
They went ahead because
Okay.
I think Sarah had gone first. So the drawing already existed of her.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah.
It's so interesting, that childhood impact, because I know particularly for Andy, my husband, who was diagnosed first of the two of us, it had a massive childhood impact because, of course, being of our generation, you're a bit younger than he and I, but of this generation and having parents of this generation, it really, as far as I know, wasn't a known thing at all. And so any of the behaviours that came under that umbrella were considered restlessness or chattiness or, in his case, laziness. And of course, those things have a profound impact on a developing child's sort of self-esteem or,
Absolutely. And how we see ourselves.
Yeah. And one of the things you and I were talking about before we started recording was the sensitivity involved with ADHD. And for both you and I, being told, I don't know about when you were a child, you can tell me, but certainly for me, I was told repetitively, you're too sensitive, you're too sensitive. It was really seen as great weakness. It took me until I was in my late 30s to realise the person who'd been saying it the most was also very sensitive, couldn't be with that because it wasn't okay for their generation. And also I can now see, including with feedback from the family, has very, very much got undiagnosed ADHD. So, that we talked about that sensitivity being actually a strength, but one, if you're told it's not okay, and then two, as a part of ADHD, RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. What a world, right? Like, do you want to say more about that either for yourself or in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I don't spend a lot of time watching content around ADHD and stuff, but I have found, is it Alex Partridge?
Yes.
The English guy?
Yes.
Very successful, relatively young business guy.
Yes.
Yes, I do sometimes watch some of his things. I find it really interesting, and certainly he has like world experts on various topics around ADHD.
Yes.
And I do recall seeing, him and his experts saying that the RSD is, most people find, the absolute hardest part of ADHD. So I think it's something that, like, probably the average person, unless you've got someone that's been recently diagnosed in your life, whether it's a friend or a partner or a child, or a parent maybe, I don't think most people still know about that bit.
No, I don't think they do.
Yeah. And so I guess for the people that don't know, maybe that are listening, it's really around the fact that so many things we perceive as a rejection, which is not. So it's, like, I don't know, it's the colleague at work that's trying to get their project finished and, you know, they might be a bit snippy.
Yes.
And if you don't have ADHD, you might just think, oh, God, okay.
Yeah.
You know, Ian's really got to get his project finished. I'll ask him the question later. But with ADHD and with that RSD, you just start thinking, oh, my God, I feel like I might have parked in Ian's parking spot last week. Did I? Oh, God, maybe that's why he's angry with me. Or was it that when we had that team meeting yesterday, I said that, you know, I wasn't sure about his idea or was it that, you know, I bought the different biscuits. Maybe Ian doesn't like those biscuits. And you really spend so much time and energy thinking of why it is that Ian's cross with you. And in a weird way, sometimes you intellectually can say, no, like I'm sure it's just the project, but it doesn't stop the spiraling and the overthinking.
Yes.
That's my experience anyway.
Yes, I didn't know about the RSD part, and I can see how it's played a part in my life very strongly. And I think part of it is this connected to this sensitivity in general, where we're able to pick up lots and lots of signals. So tone,
Very
body language,
subtle.
very subtle.
Almost vibrations.
That's
Yes.
right. And so whilst someone that doesn't have that level of sensitivity won't pick up on that and also won't suffer as much, what we were saying before we started is, you know, there's these incredible benefits to high levels of sensitivity, particularly when you're working with people, caring for people, because that level of sensitivity is actually so useful when it can be harnessed. The problem is it's not really harnessable. So for me personally, I haven't really found a good way, apart from increasing my self-love. I think the more I make myself important, the more I can manage my both RSD and general sensitivity and go, okay, I notice that I want to, at the moment we've got a client, a very tricky situation. And when I was speaking to Andy, he said, okay, what we need to do is X, Y, and Z, i.e. sort it all out for them. And I challenged him, which is unusual for me because I would normally get swept up in the situation too and want to resolve it and become responsible for everything. And I said, hang on. We're doing a particular role for this client, but actually we're not responsible for X, Y, and Z.
Other things, yeah.
We need to take it a step at a time. And I think his version was, okay, I want to sort it out for everyone. I don't know if I've told you this line. I love this line that someone told me. I'm responsible to you, not for you. And I can see how many times in my career I've been responsible for people, and then both, one, how exhausted I've gotten, but two, I've also disempowered them in that, hang on, if I do it for them, it'd be like our children, right? If I do everything for you,
you're going to be hopeless.
You're going to be hopeless. And we've actually, like, bit of a sidebar, but we've got a generation now that struggles with reality because mum and dad, i.e. us, have been like, my darling, I love you. I don't want you to go through what I went through with the tough parents. I'm going to sort it out. And now we've got all these kids who can't cope very well, don't have a lot of resilience, have anxiety because they think can't trust myself. It's a pendulum, isn't it?
And I think a lot of the time, generation to generation, the pendulum swings a bit too far the other way.
Yeah.
But just going back to the sensitivity, and I for sure always was very sensitive as a child and an adult. I mean, I'm still super sensitive now. Like if I was just out in the world, well, here's an example, silly example, but this is a few years ago, but I, walked my dog around the corner towards a coffee shop. He needed to stop and ablute on someone's lawn. So I picked that up, put it in the plastic bag. But because the coffee shop was like now 10 metres away, I was not going to take it to the coffee shop. So I just kind of like put it next to the big tree on the verge, went down to have my coffee and then intending to come back and take it with me. Well, the guy that lived there must have, I don't know, he wasn't in the front yard, but he must have seen me or whatever. And he marched down to the coffee shop with the bag and said, I think you've forgotten something. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, I was planning to come back, and anyway, and off he went. And the friend that I was having coffee with, lucky he was, you know, he's a very nice person, but I just like burst into tears. I just can't, you know, I know some people get angry when something like that happens. In fact, you know, like my husband would tend to be like, oh, I wish I was there. I would have, you know, torn strips off him. But I just, I can't handle it. But I was just going to say that now having children, my younger son is for sure the more sensitive one. And, you know, I talked to him about it, and I think that I can see all the things about him that are there because of his sensitivity.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that he is so empathetic, you know, he's so like sweet and so caring. And not to say that you can't be those things without sensitivity, but it really is dialed up. And he's so, you know, you could come home and again, he can sense it, you know, and he'll be like, oh, Mom, like, is everything okay? And, you know, like just ask a series of questions about, you know, and you're really seen, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's both true to say that high levels of sensitivity can have wonderful benefits for people around the sensitive person, personally and potentially professionally. And then the impact of harshness, I don't think people who are, well, there's two different situations. One is where people are fundamentally less sensitive, so they don't understand the damage. If, like the fellow with the bag, if he's fundamentally less sensitive, he's not thinking how much it's going to upset you. But then I think there are a group of sensitive people, like the person who always told me I was too sensitive, who are actually very sensitive and then almost can be with it less, so they will cover it with anger and things like that.
Yes,
you know,
interesting.
I've been meaning to record a session here, a straight to camera piece on keyboard warriors and social media. And I had something happen recently under this banner. I said before we started recording today, I was going to say, I think I'm going to call these with people interviews now more conversations rather than interviews, because I tend to do a bit of talking. But I had this example where I put a post on a Facebook group, and I put it on anonymously because I was asking a question and I didn't want my address known as part of the question. Anyway, one of the people came back all guns blazing, and even though it was quite an innocent question, called me names and judged me, and I had, like, literally my blood ran cold. So I did something very unusual and I commented, but I didn't yell, because, of course, when people are hurt, like you said, they'll often just yell back because it's invulnerable to yell back. But I said what had actually happened. So I said, oh, your comment really shocked me. And this is how far I went, because I thought I want people to see sort of humanity. It didn't work out for me well, but I'll tell you in a moment. So I said, oh, your comment really shocked me. I said, based on previous things that have happened to me, it actually, you may not believe this, but it kind of made my blood run cold. Like, it's really sort of ruined my night. And I said, I can only hope you're kinder to people in your real life than you've been to me, because I don't know how that comment was helpful. So that was interesting. So I put it up, didn't hear back from the person, unsurprisingly. But then I got another comment from a different person, and they said something like, I think you'll survive, Princess. If you don't want honest opinions from the community, go to a professional. Someone else
toughen up.
Right?
Yeah. Someone else
love-hearted that, who was obviously like, testify, get her out of here. And I wrote back and said, oh, wow. I said, so I expressed how the first comment had upset me, and you've doubled down and not only not respected what I've said, but felt the need to tell me to not feel how I felt. And then I put in brackets, I couldn't help myself. I said, I suspect my expression of vulnerability you couldn't be with, so you wanted to shut me down. You could have a look at that for yourself. And then I turned off comments. It was a great aggressive move to go mic drop. But, whether I should have commented on any of that or not, I think that thing that you had where you burst into tears, or I've had situations where someone's yelled at me and then I've done the same. I've burst into tears and taken a long time to get over it. I don't think there's always either an understanding from people who are naturally less sensitive, and often there's even less patience with people who can recognise it in themselves because they don't want to admit, I would be hurt too.
And I think that is a real reflection of how sensitivity has been viewed in our culture for a long time. And I hope that it's starting to shift. I certainly know, having sons, that most of what I see and have seen when they've been, you know, really little and at kindy or playing sports or whatever, I don't see a lot of the whole, come on, mate, you know, like toughen up sort of thing. There definitely is some of that. But I do like to think that, you know, there has been a bit of a, hopefully, appropriate amount of pendulum swinging.
Yeah. I think there has. Same with my son. I see how he talks to me or to his friends or about topics in general. I think there is a greater humanity in this young generation. I sometimes train young people, and the thing I notice is whilst they upset older people because they neither apologise for who they are, look up to older people like older people would like to be looked up to, they also don't organise their face in a way that older people would most enjoy. So they don't smile as much as we would like and things like that. Actually, they're very emotionally intelligent. They're more generous. They're less racist. They're more open to life. And so I would hope that what you're saying is right. I know the sort of big private boys' schools are really, really trying hard to bring in things around respect and consent, and you can be who you are and
being vulnerable yourself,
right?
Sensitive, absolutely.
I think it's heading in the right direction, but it's a funny thing to be willing to be vulnerable around it in a world that is nowhere near at that point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
You know what I mean?
I think in a lot of workplaces and stuff, it's still not acceptable.
No, and it'll be a secret. Like if I think of times when I've coached in very tough organisations, the people I'll get to know and what's going on for them is diametric opposite to how they would occur in a meeting or in a group setting. So there's no safety to be that.
Yeah.
But actually, when I think of who I've spoken to, it's actually very rare to meet someone who doesn't have a level of insecurity, a level of care, a level of sensitivity. Most human beings, I believe, are much more like you and I than is okay to admit. And that includes all the men, all the old men.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're really sensitive, but they have to layer upon layer over the top of it, right?
Absolutely. The other thing that I wanted to mention around sensitivity is that for me, it's not just emotional sensitivity, it's sensitivity to the environment. So I'm very sensitive to like lighting, fluorescent lighting, I can't handle whatsoever.
Yep.
Very sensitive to noise, very sensitive to smells. So again, I'm not entirely sure. I think that's quite common with neurodiversity. And certainly I know it's very common with autism, and a lot of people have, you know, a mixture. And I've wondered whether I might do as well. But that makes different environments, and particularly workplaces can be like really challenging. And I remember talking to my psychologist, it was probably about this time last year or maybe a little earlier in the year, when I decided to finish up at the current business development role that I was doing. And I was sort of going through a bit of a, you know, not soul searching, but career searching. Trying to figure out what, if I didn't want to do that, what was it that I was going to do next? And she said to me, you really have to take into account your sensitivities. And, you know, she said, the environment where you're going to be is actually really important. And I sort of said, it just makes me sound a bit like, I don't know, a bit soft or a bit, needy or something,
Yeah,
And she
yeah.
said, no, like for you, the lighting
Yeah.
and, the actual like ambience has to be right.
Yeah.
And I really think she's very good at her job. So
Yeah.
she was on the money.
Yeah.
So again, I know that the sort of other environmental sensitivities are quite common with neurodiversity, but this same psychologist was the one that when I met her for the first time in the sort of burnout stage, I was very lucky to have been recommended someone that was so good.
Yes.
And she said to me after probably listening to me ramble on, I literally think I was there for about 3 hours the first time. And she just said to me, right, well, you've got ADHD, you've got OCD, and this is not a diagnosis, but you're also a highly sensitive person. So I think there is, obviously versions of sensitivity that can be outside of the neurodiversity as well. So, yeah.
Well, that what you've just said, whatever the audience gets from it, has been very usefully impactful for me, because I have always described myself as porous.
Me too.
I just feel like I pick up wherever I am. Then when you said about bright lights, I'm teased at home because I have lamps, and if there's a bright light on, I'll say, who turned on this light?
Who turned on the big light, I'm like, who turned on the big light?
I go, who turned on the hell light? Because there's one near the dining room door, and I go, never turn this light on. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
And you've actually just really helped me have greater compassion for myself and feedback to give my husband.
Yeah.
Because it is so impactful. And a bit like you, I think it's hard, I think, to be gentle with oneself about whether it's right or wrong. It's true. And it's true. And there's a reason why.
We didn't pick it.
No.
We didn't say. We didn't choose it.
But I think dismissing it has become kind of automatic. It's kind of like, as we look now, I've had a lot of interviews this year with people looking after psychosocial risk and psychological safety. And I think a lot of people in my generation or your generation were brought up to suck it up so much that we won't even naturally go to protect ourselves or our needs. And you saying I'm sensitive as you, and me going, that's true for me too. And then going, and actually that is okay. I don't have to say that's not right, or I don't have to deny it, or I don't have to apologise for it. It is just true.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Absolutely.
And luckily, you and I are in positions where we can make choices that work for us.
We are very lucky.
So lucky.
Very lucky.
Oh my God.
Yeah. A lot of people do not have that that blessing, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
No, they have to cope to survive with wherever they are.
Yeah, with their thumping headaches from the fluoro lights and just it's tough.
Yeah. So a little bit like I've said at different times on this podcast, having these advantages we do to explore these things, part of me, of course, being from my generation, criticises myself and, it's, why are you talking about all this stuff, self-indulgent nonsense? And then the other part of me goes, hang on, the more understanding I have of myself, the more I learn from my guests, the more loving I am to myself and other people, actually the greater positive impact I can have, right? So if we've got the space, it's not a bad mission to go, how do I best contribute to myself and others?
And that, what you've just said there, that's another thing that I've learned, like just another space in another part of life where I'm very sensitive and have just learned to go, you know what, I just have to manage it this way, is the news. So when I was a kid and a teenager, my family would, like my original family would always be like, oh God, Kate, like you've got no idea what's going on in the world, because I did not like to tune in to the news. I just found that, it to be very upsetting, and like a lot of people do. But I think that word that you use to describe yourself is one that I've always used as well, which is porous. So a lot of people might see, terrible stabbing in Rockingham or whatever. Sorry, Rockingham, it just popped into my head. They might think, oh God, that's awful. And they might even think about it for half an hour or whatever. Well, you know, I might be thinking about that days later. So I just sort of almost naturally as a young person had to put a bit of a barrier up to protect myself. And then as I got older, I sort of went through ups and downs of thinking, no, like it's important for me as a global citizen. I need to know what's going on. And, you know, I would never sit down and watch, you know, a whole news program, but I would, you know, obviously as the internet came in, there was different ways that you could get your news. And so I went through quite a few years of having just like the ABC News app on my phone and thinking, right, well, I'll just keep up with the top stories and stuff. And then I just realised, for what purpose? You know, if this is going to take my energy and take my not even so much energy, I can't quite get, I'll see if I get the word, but, you know, and then I'm going to be less of myself, you know, because I'm like a pretty like happy, upbeat, like sparkly person to have around. But if kind of feeling like I need to know all of this bad news is going to make me less of that for either my, you know, partner or my family or my colleagues or my friends,
I know.
What is the... Wouldn't I be better just to be like the best version of me?
Yeah.
And then other people get to have that version, which is better.
Yeah, that question around what's the point, I had the same feedback. You must know what's going on in the world from both sides of the family. I'm like, yeah, okay, do I? And then there's two elements to that. One is that as human beings, you know, we've still got these cave people brains largely, 100%. And we were not built to have this enormous world load of tragedy.
No, we wouldn't have known. We would have only known what was going on
in our little tribe, right?
Yep.
But secondly, if the news was a balanced, positive to negative, not if it bleeds, it leads machine, one could get a fuller picture and would be able to cope. But it is a deluge, a fire hose deluge of negativity and horror. I had to take, I think it was 9 MSN off my phone. I had it on an old phone, and they would pick the most distressing story to have as the thumbnail. And I realised after a while, why am I letting myself see that?
Why am I consuming this?
Yeah, like, you know, like, yes, I understand it's useful at a level, certainly to have an interesting dinner party conversation, to know what's going on in the world. But because it is so manipulated and so outside of our control what we consume, Andy and I watch a YouTube channel called Good News.
Oh,
and they put out a thing once a month.
I'm not familiar exactly, but I know the concept. Yeah,
so they put one out once a month, and it really is softening for one's heart, because you think everything's so bad. So you either watch all the badness, or like you and I, my whole algorithm on every social media is a combination of poems and self-help and puppies. So I don't see the horror. And then when you look at what's available to listen to, you know, you hear these, you know, these stories they put on Good News, and they're really good news. And the thing is, if we look at how people behaving in real life and how nice or not nice they are, when everyone's marinated in horror all the time, they are, like you said, well, what if this news impacts how I am as a partner or mother or friend? Everyone is being impacted, but they will or won't make, one, have the realisation, or two, go, okay, I'm going to make a better choice. I had Kate Fandry here last week, and she's bringing out a book. Do you know Kate?
I don't know her well, but I've met her over the years.
Yeah, she's very cool.
Yeah.
And she's bringing out with 2 colleagues a book later this year called Wisdom, and it's about EI and the paradox, and it was a fantastic conversation. But one of the things she said very early in that conversation is about 95% of people think they're self-aware, and their definition of self-awareness is I understand myself and my impact on others. And actually it's about 10 or 15% in reality. And the speaker that was talking about it on a TED Talk said, you know, if you are actually self-aware, I would say you're a unicorn. It's so rare. So I said in the interview, I was dusting my shoulders like, I'm just very self-aware, until we got to the point of you're very aware of your impact on others. And I know that I'm still learning and still get surprised on my impact on others. But the reason I'm talking about this idea of self-awareness is, you know, people say, oh, well, the news doesn't bother me, but then they're shitty. Or the news doesn't bother me, but then they get on Facebook and abuse someone.
Yeah. Or the news doesn't bother me, but, you know, they don't actually have any millennials in their life.
Yeah.
And now they only think that millennials are like what they've heard on the news. So,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a little thread that I was going to say.
Awesome.
About self-awareness, but it's just dropped.
It'll come back.
It'll come back.
They
if it was any good, it'll come back.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I do really like to listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
And I do listen to like some pop culture podcasts because I think it's important now that I'm getting older, especially with kids, you know, just to have a bit of a concept of what's going on.
Yeah.
And although that is very much pop culture, you know, you can't be in this world without getting a bit of a concept of what's going on. So even though I might be, generally an ostrich with my head in the sand, you do kind of pick up a little bit on, you know, certain things. So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and I think
in terms of having that dinner party conversation.
Yeah, and also, like, if you look at it from the tribe point of view, you know, what do I need to know? I do the same. Like, I keep up to date with things around social media and young people, boys and their education and things that I'm, you know, I've got an 11-year-old and I'm thinking all the time, what a weird world he's in that I'm sure our parents thought about us and has happened for millennia. But, you know, I think, okay, so I'll check with him, you know, what's happening here, or, you know, how you're feeling about this, or have you heard anything about this? And same kind of thing. Like, what do I need to know? What do I need to be aware of enough that I can have a conversation? To be honest, I'm not someone that can have a good dinner party conversation because my area of interest is so narrow and so deep in that area that if someone wants to talk about many, many things, I'd tell them to talk to Andy. He has a very broad understanding, can talk about many subjects and finds many subjects interesting. Yeah. Whereas I'm like,
Well, I think I'm quite good at a dinner party because I'm interested in people.
Yes.
So whoever I'm sitting next to, I'll often, especially if they're brand new to me, and I really like meeting new people. Yeah. Although I've got my old faves as well. You're on the list.
Thank you.
I just will pepper them with so many questions.
Because, cool.
You know, and then they'll say something and then I'll be like, oh, God, like, I'm so interested. And they're like 12 more questions and then I'm sorry, like, I'm not meaning to interrogate you, but I think pretty much everyone is interesting and has interesting stories and has, you know, so I feel as though most people like to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got someone asking, as long as they're not, you know, asking inappropriate things or making the person feel uncomfortable. If they're making the person feel like they're interested, because they are, then I think most people quite enjoy that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's I say to people in training, I say, how often does actually someone really listen to you? And for a lot of people, it's never. Never does someone really stop and be interested and listen to them.
And I think that this is why I'm so excited about going into my new thing, which is to be a celebrant, because I feel as though whichever part of life we are marking, you know, as a celebrant, whether that is, you know, the introduction of a new baby, or it might be, you know, a marriage, or it might be, you know, an end of life occasion, or something else in between. What I want to be able to offer is something that is meaningful, personal. And so you can only do that if you are interested and if you are finding out like what actually that person or those people, you know, what makes them tick.
Yeah, and when I think about that role for you, but also based on what we've talked about so far, there's so much of it that once you told me it was something you wanted to do and it felt so right for you, it made so much sense because of your love of people, your love of new people, your love of people in general, your generosity, your empathy. And then if we look at the things we've talked about, even around the porosity or sensitivity, you know, the environments you will be in, the way you'll be with people, your ability to be with people in different joy or tragedy or sadness or happiness, it actually makes so much sense, and it's a real example of the strength of sensitivity, right? Because if you're a, you know, however they say it, bullish, right, what are we going to do? Can you imagine someone organising their wedding? Rightio, what vows do you want, you know?
Yeah, or, you know, here's the menu, choose from. And look, that's the right thing for some people. Some people don't want a celebrant that's going to ask them a bunch of questions and whatever. But I suppose I'm hopeful. Well, no, I'm sure that there will be a lot of people out there that would prefer or would like, that'll be the right fit for them. How I will do it. And then, you know, that will be my ideal customer.
That's right.
And I'll be their ideal celebrant.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing which I've been really trying to learn and take on, and is so strong in the wisdom where if you are yourself, that is both the best thing you can be as a contribution, but also the right people will find you from being that.
Absolutely.
Are you talking about your business name yet, or are we waiting until the business launch?
Oh, no.
Okay.
We're definitely talking about it.
Okay, great. So what's your business name?
It is Kind of a Big Deal Moments, which I love. And I came up with it as soon as I signed up for the Celebrant training course, and I registered the name and everything. And I went through a moment which you were aware of earlier this year, where my lovely husband said, he knows about my sensitivity and my RSD. He said, I haven't really known how to bring this up with you, but I'm not sure about the name. And I really appreciated the fact that he did bring it up with me, because I hadn't done any sort of testing, I just had loved it and kind of gone ahead. And so it was an opportunity for me to think deeply about it and to ask some people what their thoughts were and put it out there. And I, went all around and came back to really feeling that it was the right fit, and I love it.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah.
So rather than me telling you why I love it, what happened when you went around and came back to it?
So interestingly, I found that a lot of people who might have similarities to me, and you were in this group, loved it and totally got it, got where I was coming from. So I'll tell you about the people that didn't get it maybe first. That's easier than going the other way around. But then some people came back and said, oh, I don't know about this, brides won't like that because, their wedding isn't kind of a big deal. Like, it is a big deal. And I was kind of like, yeah, but it was tongue in cheek. Like, all of the occasions where you would need a celebrant is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So, I think there was... The reason that I liked it as well was that there's a little bit of irreverence to it.
Yes.
So although I would be taking everybody's celebration, very seriously, obviously I'll be very professional.
Yeah.
But, I'm the sort of person that also will... put a little bit of lightheartedness or maybe a little bit of cheekiness into things.
Yeah.
And so I liked that part of it too.
Yeah.
And I also just felt that a lot of the celebrants are just, Kate Fandry celebrant. And so I just was like, seems a bit yawn.
I think we could say more here.
I think I can be better than that. I think I can be more fun.
Yeah, it's both totally fun, but I think I said to you at the time, and I certainly get now, that kind of a big deal moments, actually saying the kind of a big deal, it does get that flavour of a bit different or irreverent. But actually for me, it actually is more respectful that it is a big moment. Like for me, if I said, look, this is a kind of a big deal moment, I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying it really is.
Absolutely. It's almost like a double.
Yeah.
It can,
Yeah.
it can be interpreted.
And then the people that thought, oh, no, hang on. For me, the feeling was more of conservatism. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's better that your name suggests not that, because then
That's
you're
probably not my ideal person.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about you being of service. What'll make it magic is you matching them as much as they match you.
100%.
You'll be choosing them as much as they'll be choosing you.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think that's exactly it. Because, you know, obviously a wedding is usually, not for everyone, but like it's usually, you know, reasonably long journey that you're planning it and putting it together. And, you know, you do meet with your celebrant. And I do think that the celebrant like sets a lot of the tone. And so it's an important choice that you have someone that's right for you. But then also for me, like when I'm spending time, you know, it could be on the weekend or whatever away from my family, like I want to really be loving being there. And look, I just, it's been a long wait because as you know, I've finished my training quite some time ago, and because you know, for very good reason, because getting married is there's a lot of legalities around it. It needs to be, you need to be registered with the Commonwealth Government of Australia, and so that process is taking quite a long time. So when you put your registration application and you pay your fee, they do say, like they're very open, they say it can take up to 6 months. I'm hopelessly optimistic. So I always just think, you know, like there's no way it could take 6 months. But it's been 4.5 months so far. So anyway, I mean, I'm, you know, that's fine. Like I'm keeping myself busy, and you know, it's actually been really nice. But when I have these sorts of conversations and I talk about the work that I'm going to do, I just get really excited and I can't wait.
That's what I love about it. It's like when I said to you, is this, you know, really what you want to do? And like, you're like, this is my dream thing, you know, what a happy, isn't it funny having minds like ours and you know, this sort of joyful thing happening and going to happen, and it's wonderful. And then sort of the challenge and difficulty of a human life in general, and then a life with a particular brain, you know, it's such a mixed experience, isn't it? Like, whoa, this is what I'm going to do. I found the right thing, you know, and then like, oh yeah, I'm really worried about this or that, or am I doing that okay? And it's like, oh my God, I'm doing, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not boring.
No, absolutely. And look, I spent decades really not knowing what it was that I wanted to do for paid work. After high school, I went straight into doing like physio as an undergraduate degree, which, look, no regrets. It was, met some of my best friends, and it was actually quite interesting to just know for your like own knowledge about your body. But I think I knew pretty early on that that was not a long-term thing. And so when I was a physio and in my 20s, I used to like, I've always found it quite difficult to look too far ahead into the future. I don't know whether that's a common, I don't know whether how you go with that. And so whenever I would end up having a conversation with Dane, who probably wasn't even my husband then, but, you know, my boyfriend, I would just end up in tears because I would think, well, I know I don't want to be a physio, but I was I think it's actually quite Australian. I feel like this is quite an Australian thing because when I lived in the UK, it was not like this. I feel like in Australia, you often get a certain qualification, whether it's university or TAFE or whatever, and it's like, okay, this is what I do.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, but I'm a physio. I've got a Bachelor of Science in physio. Even though there was so many soft skills or so many things that I had that could be used in other sort of fields, I just couldn't work it out.
Yeah.
Whereas I found like when I lived in the UK, people would be, perhaps they'd go to university and study history, and then they would come out and do management consulting because, you know, people would just be like, oh, great. Okay, you're obviously quite smart. You've been to university. You know, you're good at writing. You're good at analysis. And, you know, there just seemed to be more openness to people trying different things without necessarily having a piece of paper. So anyway, I would cry because I would just think, I'm pretty bright. I knew that I was smart, and I knew that I was pretty good with people through, the physio work. And I just would think, I don't know what to do. And it wasn't actually until weird sort of way that it started, but obviously studying at university is expensive. So in order to do a post-grad, you're kind of like, where am I going to get the money for that? And I've only just paid off my HECS debt.
Yeah.
But I got into a car accident. It was a weird situation. So Dane and I lived in Maylands. So we must have been about 26. So we'd been to the UK, done all that, travelled, come back. We were living in Perth, and I was on my way to this boxing class that I used to love. And I was going along Watley Parade, which you probably know.
I do.
And this young driver, Rory, I still remember his name, he was 18, and he was just stopped at, I think it was second, and just, just one of those, just didn't look, or looked but didn't see.
Yeah.
And I just T-boned him. And so thank God we were both okay, like very shaken up. My car was totaled. Weirdly, the only reason I'm telling the story in detail, because I just still think this is crazy, Dane was coming from work exactly the same time, the other direction. He saw the accident.
Wow.
So I was like spun around, like in this car
He saw
accident.
it happen.
He saw it happen.
Oh, my God.
He pulled over and he was there. Like, it was crazy. Anyway, I had years after that of, just like issues, because it was quite a bad whiplash and like a lot of arm pain, which impacted me and blah, blah, blah. And so eventually you come to an agreement, I suppose, with the motor vehicle insurance people. And so I got a small payout, but it was enough for me to be like, okay, well, this would pay for like a few units of like a master's. So we were living in Melbourne by that stage, and I just thought, I looked at all the MBAs and I thought, oh, that's a lot of finance and stuff in that. I don't ever want to do that. And I also knew already from working in like reasonably large organisations like Silver Chain, when I looked like up the org chart, did I want to be a general manager? Did I want to, like, no. So I ended up doing, it was just called a master's of management, and it was at Monash. And so I did that just part-time while I was still working full-time. And so that was the thing that really kind of gave me a bit of confidence to be like, oh, okay, I'm not just a physio. And so that kind of, I suppose, springboarded me into doing other things. And then I did a lot of business development and blah, blah, blah. But then, as you know, as I said, that still wasn't quite, it was great.
Yes.
But I suppose maybe, and this is definitely an ADHD thing, you get bored pretty quickly with stuff. So, then I went through that sort of soul searching of being like, what is really going to like fill my cup, and what am I going to be pumped about? And so then I was like, kind of a big deal moment.
Yeah, kind of a big deal moment.
Yeah.
It's very meta, isn't it?
Yeah,
because it was kind of a big deal to get to it. I'm not sure how it works, because I think when I think about people that have had, I've heard a saying, someone famous may have said it, or I may have just heard it, some of the most interesting people don't know what they want to do, in their midlife. I've certainly seen it, yourself, myself, numerous people who are very interesting and wonderful. And often there is like they call it the dark night of the soul kind of period, or one of my friends calls it, going through the swamplands, and trying to sort of go, what is it that's really true? What version of me is true? What does pump me up, and where can I best contribute? And, as we sit here right now, I'm still working through that question myself. And there's things I love and things I love doing, but it's still not neat as we sit here right now. So, it makes me really, really happy when you say, I really want to do this thing, and I'm really happy because that's perfect, right?
But the good thing is as well, like I've definitely suffered when I was younger with a lot of black and white thinking, you know, and thinking. So I think if I had still that mindset, I would now be thinking, right, okay, well, this is it now. You know, I found it and now this is what I'm going to do until I'm retired.
Yes.
But now I've got the ability to be like, well, this is going to be great. And obviously, you know, it is very flexible. Not a lot of people do Celebrant work as their full-time work. Like some people do, but a lot of people do it in sort of adjunct to something else. And now I've got the sort of capacity to say, well, this is going to be great, but like, there's other things that I think I'd be good at, or that, you know, Dane and I have always said that once the kids are older and maybe at uni, you know, we'd love to sort of be somewhere a bit more regional. I mean, I would run the most amazing like B&B or, really you know, accommodation because, you know, I'm like a really fussy bitch, but about like the important stuff like food and linen and drinks and just like aesthetics. I love to make things beautiful and I love to make people feel really comfortable and I just I think, you know, we would really kill that.
I think you would too. I love it.
Killer duo.
I'm coming to stay.
Yeah, please do.
When you were talking about thinking about the future, I learnt this term years ago and it really comforted me, and it was called fuzzy visioning. So people say, what's your 5-year plan? I go, I don't even have a 3-month plan, let alone, right? I have no idea.
That's the sort of thing that would make me cry.
Oh, well, you go, I really don't know, you know. But then when I think about things that I do manifest things, but they're very fuzzy. So I'll put a thing in my mind, like the house we currently live in has been in my mind for decades, and I have things in my mind for the future, and it is likely I will turn them out. But if you said to me, take me through from here to then.
Clarity.
Oh, no, I've put it in the future and I'll make it happen, but that's all I can give you at this moment, you know, because, it's not how it works for me. It's sort of what's the next step that feels like the right next step.
Yes.
And it might not be a neat journey, but I just will follow that and I'll figure it out. Do you ever find, because I'm like you, I believe, oh, no, it'll work out, you know, it'll work out. So I'll say, oh, this is what I'm going to do, or this, and people are, oh, you know, that look. All right. And I go, okay,
Tam.
like that. And I'll go, all right, leave it with me. And then, you know, they won't make much fuss when it happens, but I also get that begrudging like, oh, you didn't make it happen.
You were right.
You're right about that. Oh, I know, because I think it's right to have that it's going to work out attitude. And then sometimes you have to deal with disappointment for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a much better frame of mind to be in.
100%.
Right?
I would much rather be that optimistic kind of like Jack Russell.
Right? And then occasionally go, oh.
Yeah.
But those occasions are rare, the experience of every day, if you're able to go, but I actually don't even know how much choice we've got in it because I'm naturally like it. I think you're naturally like it. And then with people I know that aren't naturally like it, I've never seen them be able to shift.
No.
I think
they're going against the tide.
Yeah, I think that I don't know if that's changeable. I haven't seen it. I think if someone has a fear, normally a fear-based belief on one must be up for trouble, they can't turn that down from what I've seen so far. I hope I'm wrong, but yeah. But I can't. I get why they can't turn it down because I can't turn my one up. Yes. Like I can't go now. Start worrying about
all the things.
Yeah. Because I just go nah. Yeah. I'm not going to.
The other thing that I've read or sort of seen in reference to ADHD and just made me think of what you were saying about like, no, I'm just like going to make this happen.
Yeah.
Like. I think a lot of people who do have ADHD, if there's something that they really want or something that they're really interested in, listen, we all know about the hyperfocus.
Yeah.
Like it's very rare that we won't actually then make it happen.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what's going to stop us?
Yeah. Well, see, of course, that there's been a lot of poo-pooing of the late diagnosis of ADHD. Oh, has everyone got ADHD now and all of that stuff? But actually, if you look at it from the skills point of view, I mean, you know, our most famous ADHD person in terms of cliched success, of course, is Richard Branson, and one can watch his level of creative thinking and ability to create and all the rest. But there is, like, even in what we've talked about today, yes, there's things to manage, but if one's respectful about oneself and the environment they're in and how they operate and actually go, well, bad luck, this is how I operate, then all the superpowers of that neurodivergency can come into play. You know, that if you look back on your life or I look back on mine, there's lots of amazing things that have happened for us, but probably more importantly for people around us from this ability and this sensitivity and the difference it makes. It's really, when I think about people like yourself or other close people in my life with the level of empathy they have, what I said earlier I think is really key, the I count. Something I think Donna Ashworth wrote it the other day, the poet out of Scotland, and she said something like, if you're a people pleaser, remember that you're a person too. And certainly the recent journey for me, and the thing that has given me a level of protection from people that aren't well-intentioned, is this idea of I count. I had a terrible situation.
I can please myself.
I can please myself. And I count as someone that's needs can be looked after, and it doesn't mean I'm not caring. It can actually make me more honestly caring and more clearly caring than the part of me that wants to care because I'm not good enough or to prove myself, or because that comes with an asterisk, right? Whereas if I'm loving to you or Dan or the family or anyone, and I don't need anything back from you because I'm looking after myself.
Yes.
It's a very pure flavour.
Absolutely.
Versus, you know, I'm working with a group at the moment, they're incredibly caring, but the care and the sort of martyr syndrome and everything is mashed together. So you get this sort of munted love. It's love, but only partly. So yeah, if I think of one time when someone yelled at me and I cried, but another time someone yelled at me and I said, don't talk to me like that. And even though I hated it happened, because I was protecting myself, the trauma lasted less time. I was less upset. I got over it faster. So for me, for you, myself, or other people I think of who really, really are impacted by those around them, I think having yourself as the priority, like I talk about Lockie here all the time, my coach, and, you know, he talks about this idea of if we love ourselves first, we're selfish. But actually, the only way to be most loving is to love oneself. So you don't need to try and draw it out of everyone else, right?
Absolutely.
I'm all right. I protect me. I love me. Now, what can I do for you? But I'm number one. And he found it hard to get on board with that himself. Then I found hard to get on board, particularly Catholic upbringing, you know, mea culpa, cat of nine tails. But when I got it...
I feel sorry for the Catholics.
That's not a good start.
My very best friend who I've known since I was tiny was also brought up, and there's just so much guilt and so
much burden on our shoulders.
Absolutely.
Like when I was talking to Stephen Bodie and I said, you know, how can we be awakened and still human? And he said, you know, you can still be human and awake. He said, you know, you don't have to be a saint. And I was like, oh, yes, that's right.
Absolutely.
Because we do actually need to be saintly in the Catholic tradition. I literally played Mary several times in primary school.
You would have been so good.
I was so pious. I was so serious. And
Absolutely.
I was so...
And you would have looked beautiful in that blue.
I had to climb up a ladder. We had a crowning of Mary, and I had to climb up a ladder in my long white dress with my blue robe, and I had to put a crown on the statue of Mary. Oh, Mary, we crown thee with blossoms today.
Wow.
Queen of the manger and queen, right? So
the manger,
some people listening will go,
oh,
they either just had like a PTSD reaction or a comforting one, depending on their experience.
Of course.
Or it was the song we sang at my primary school and my primary school only. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. And if you like what you've heard about me, you can see more here.